My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm 34 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, in a small apartment above a coffee shop that smells like cinnamon and fresh rain. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, and it's the kind of gray, drizzly day that makes you want to stay in bed forever. But I can't stay in bed. Not today. Today, I have to figure out why my own family pretended I don't exist. 3 days ago, my grandmother Eleanor passed away. She was 87, and while we all knew this day would come, it still felt like a punch to the gut when my cousin Michelle called to tell me. Eleanor had been battling heart disease for the past 2 years, but she was one of those stubborn women who refused to slow down. Even at 87, she was still tending to her garden, baking cookies for the neighborhood kids, and calling me every single day at exactly 3 p.m. Every single day. For the past 15 years, ever since I moved to Portland after college, Grandma Eleanor would call me at 3 p.m. sharp. Sometimes we'd talk for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. She'd tell me about her garden, ask about my work at the nonprofit, where I help coordinate mental health resources for teenagers, and always end the conversation with, "I love you, sweetheart. You're doing important work." Those calls were the highlight of my day. In a world that often felt chaotic and overwhelming, Grandma Eleanor's voice was my anchor. She was the one person in my family who truly understood me, who supported my decision to move across the country, who never made me feel guilty for choosing a different path than what my parents expected, which is why reading her obituary this morning felt like being slapped across the face. I'm sitting at my kitchen table now, my laptop open in front of me, staring at the screen through tears I can't seem to stop. The obituary was published in the Baton Rouge Advocate, my hometown newspaper in Louisiana. It's beautifully written, capturing the essence of who Grandma Eleanor was. Her love for gardening, her volunteer work at the local food bank, her famous peach cobbler that won the county fair 3 years in a row. But there's something missing. Someone missing. Me. The obituary lists all of her surviving family members. Eleanor is survived by her children, Robert Chen Martinez, Linda, of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Patricia Chen Williams, David, of Houston, Texas. Her grandchildren, Michael Chen Martinez, Jennifer of New Orleans, Louisiana, Michelle Chen Martinez of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Rebecca Williams, Tyler, of Dallas, Texas. That's it, 3 grandchildren. But Eleanor had 4 grandchildren. She had me. I read the obituary 5 times, thinking maybe I missed something, maybe my name was there, and I just overlooked it. But no, Sarah Chen doesn't exist in this official record of my grandmother's life. According to the Baton Rouge Advocate, I was never born. My hands are shaking as I reach for my phone. The rational part of my brain knows this has to be a mistake. Maybe my dad, Robert, just forgot to mention me when he gave the information to the newspaper. Maybe he was grief-stricken and not thinking clearly. Maybe it was an honest oversight, but the knot in my stomach tells me otherwise. This feels intentional. This feels like punishment. I dial my dad's number, my heart pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. The phone rings once, twice, 3 times before he answers. "Hello?" His voice sounds tired, older than I remember. "Dad, it's Sarah." There's a pause, a long pause that makes my chest tighten. "Oh, hi, sweetheart. How are you holding up?" I take a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad, I just read Grandma's obituary online." "Oh, good. Patricia worked really hard on that. She wanted to make sure it captured Mom's spirit." "Dad!" My voice cracks, despite my efforts to stay calm. "My name isn't in it." Another pause, longer this time. "What do you mean?" "I mean my name isn't listed as one of her surviving grandchildren. It lists Michael, Michelle, and Rebecca, but not me. It's like I don't exist." I hear him sigh heavily. "Sarah, honey, you have to understand. It was complicated. There wasn't much space, and..." "There wasn't much space?" The words come out sharper than I intended. "Dad, I'm her granddaughter. I talk to her every single day, every day for 15 years. How is there not space for my name?" "You moved away, Sarah. You chose to leave. You missed Christmas 3 years in a row. You didn't come to Uncle Jimmy's funeral. I couldn't afford to fly home every time." I'm standing now, pacing around my small kitchen. "I work for a nonprofit, Dad. I don't make a lot of money. And when I did come home, you and Mom barely spoke to me because you're still mad that I didn't become a doctor like you wanted. That's not, and I didn't miss Christmas by choice. I was volunteering at the crisis hotline because kids don't stop having mental health emergencies just because it's a holiday. Grandma understood that. She was proud of what I do. My dad is quiet for a long moment. I can hear my mom's voice in the background, asking who's on the phone. Sarah, he finally says, his voice softer now. I'm sorry. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we should have... Forget it. I hang up before he can finish. I slump back into my chair, my whole body shaking with a mixture of anger and grief. This is exactly why I moved to Portland in the first place. This feeling of being the outsider, the disappointment, the one who never quite fits into the family portrait. But Grandma Eleanor never made me feel that way, ever. I close my eyes and let myself remember the last conversation we had. It was Sunday, October 12th, at exactly 3 p.m., just like always. She had called to tell me about the new rose bush she'd planted in her front yard, a yellow variety called Julia Child that she thought I'd love because it reminded her of the color of my favorite sweater. I'm putting it right by the front window, she had said, so I can see it every morning when I have my coffee. It'll make me think of you. We had talked for 27 minutes that day. I know because I looked at my phone after we hung up, already missing her voice and counting the hours until she'd call again. She told me she was proud of me for helping a teenager named Marcus find a therapist after he'd been struggling with depression. She asked about the guy I'd been dating, James, and whether I thought he might be the one. She reminded me to eat more vegetables and get enough sleep. Normal grandma things, loving grandma things. At the end of the call, she said what she always said. I love you, sweetheart. You're doing important work. But then she added something else, something that seemed insignificant at the time, but now feels heavy with meaning. Sarah, honey, I want you to know that you matter. What you do matters. Who you are matters. Don't let anyone ever make you feel otherwise. I had laughed and told her she was being dramatic, that I was fine, that I knew I mattered. But now, staring at this obituary that erases me from her life story, I wonder if she somehow knew this would happen, if she was trying to prepare me for this moment when her own children would act like I never existed. The rain is getting heavier outside, drumming against my windows like fingers tapping impatiently. I make myself another cup of coffee, my third today, and try to figure out what to do next. The funeral is tomorrow. I've already taken time off work and booked a flight that leaves in 4 hours. I was planning to stay with my parents, but after this conversation with my dad, I'm not sure that's a good idea anymore. I open a new browser tab and search for hotels near the church where the service will be held. There's a Hampton Inn about 10 minutes away with availability. I book a room for 2 nights, using the last of my emergency savings account. It hurts financially, but it hurts less than the alternative of staying in my childhood home where I'm clearly not welcome. As I'm packing my suitcase, my phone buzzes with a text message. It's from my cousin Michelle, the one who called to tell me about Grandma's passing. Hey Sarah, just wanted to make sure you saw that Aunt Patricia is doing a reading at the service tomorrow. She found some of Grandma's journals and wants to share some excerpts. Thought you'd want to know. I stare at the message for a long moment before typing back, thanks for letting me know. See you tomorrow. Journals. I didn't know Grandma Eleanor kept journals. In all our daily conversations, she never mentioned writing in a diary or keeping records of her thoughts. But then again, there was probably a lot about my grandmother's inner life that I didn't know, despite how close we were. The thought of hearing her words read aloud tomorrow both comforts and terrifies me. What if her journals reveal that I wasn't as important to her as I thought? What if she wrote about being disappointed in me, just like the rest of the family? But what if the opposite is true? What if her journals prove that our daily phone calls meant as much to her as they did to me? I finish packing and call an Uber to take me to the airport. As we drive through the rainy Portland streets, I watch the city I've made my home blur past the windows. In a few hours, I'll be back in Louisiana, surrounded by humid air and complicated family dynamics and the ghost of a woman who called me every day for 15 years. A woman whose obituary pretends I never existed. But I existed to her. I know I did. And tomorrow, maybe I'll finally understand why that wasn't enough for anyone else. The Baton Rouge airport smells exactly like I remember, a mixture of industrial cleaning products, fried food from the Popeyes by Gate 7, and something uniquely Louisiana that I can never quite identify but always recognize. It's 11 p.m. when I land, and the humidity hits me like a wall the moment I step outside to catch my taxi. I give the driver the address of the Hampton Inn, and as we drive through the city streets, I'm struck by how little has changed. The same chain restaurants line the highway. The same billboards advertise personal injury lawyers and casino promotions. Even the potholes seem to be in the same places they were when I left 15 years ago. The hotel room is exactly what you'd expect from a Hampton Inn. Clean, generic, with a view of the parking lot and a Waffle House across the street. I sit on the edge of the bed and try to decide whether to call James, my boyfriend back in Portland. We've been dating for 8 months, and while I wouldn't call it serious yet, he's been incredibly supportive during the past few days. He even offered to come with me to the funeral, but I told him it would be too complicated to explain to my family. Now I'm wondering if I should have accepted his offer. At least then, I'd have one person in my corner. Instead, I call him just to hear a friendly voice. "Hey you," he answers on the second ring. "How was the flight?" "Long. Turbulent. The baby behind me cried for 2 hours straight." I kick off my shoes and lie back on the hotel bed. "But I made it. How are you feeling about tomorrow?" That's such a James question. He's a therapist. We actually met when I was trying to connect one of my clients with services, and he has this way of cutting straight to the emotional heart of things. It's one of the things I love about him, and also one of the things that sometimes makes me want to hide under a rock. Honestly, I don't know. Sad about Grandma, obviously, but also angry about the obituary thing, and nervous about seeing everyone. It's been 2 years since I was home last. What was that like? The last time you visited? I close my eyes and let myself remember. It was Christmas 2022. I had saved up for months to afford the plane ticket, excited to surprise everyone by showing up unannounced. But the surprise was on me when I realized my absence hadn't been missed as much as I'd hoped. My mom spent most of the visit making passive-aggressive comments about how I looked too thin and how my apartment in Portland was probably too small and how it was such a shame I wasn't seeing anyone seriously. My dad barely looked up from his medical journals. My cousins were polite, but distant, their conversations filled with references to local people and events I knew nothing about. The only person who seemed genuinely happy to see me was Grandma Eleanor. She hugged me like I'd been gone for a decade, made my favorite breakfast, biscuits and sausage gravy, and spent hours showing me photos of her garden and telling me stories about the neighborhood kids she'd been mentoring. It was fine, I tell James, because the truth is too complicated to explain over the phone. Just typical family stuff. Well, tomorrow will be difficult no matter what. But remember, you're there to honor your grandmother, not to fix your family's dysfunction. This is why I love dating a therapist. He has a way of putting things in perspective that makes everything seem manageable. We talk for a few more minutes before I let him go. It's late, and I need to try to get some sleep before tomorrow's emotional marathon. But sleep doesn't come easily. I lie in the dark, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the occasional car passing by on the highway, thinking about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. What if my parents don't acknowledge me at the funeral? What if I start crying during the service and can't stop? What if hearing Aunt Patricia read from Grandma's journals breaks me completely? I must have eventually dozed off, because the next thing I know, my phone alarm is going off and pale morning light is filtering through the hotel curtains. It's 7 a.m. The funeral isn't until 2 p.m., but I want to have plenty of time to get ready and mentally prepare myself. I order room service, overpriced coffee and a bagel that tastes like cardboard, and spend an hour in the shower, letting the hot water wash away the travel exhaustion and some of my anxiety. I brought one black dress, the same one I wore to job interviews and the occasional work event. It's nothing fancy, but it's respectful and fits well. As I'm doing my makeup, my phone buzzes with a text from Michelle. "Hey, change of plans. The family is meeting at Grandma's house at noon to go through some of her things before the service. You should come if you want." I stare at the message, unsure how to respond. Part of me wants to go. Grandma's house holds so many good memories, and I'd love the chance to see it one more time. But part of me dreads the awkwardness of being around my parents after yesterday's phone conversation. I text back, "I'll be there, because if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it completely." The Uber driver who picks me up is a chatty older man named Earl, who asks if I'm in town for business or pleasure. When I tell him I'm here for my grandmother's funeral, his whole demeanor shifts. "I'm sorry for your loss, baby girl," he says, his voice gentle. "Were y'all close?" "Very," I say. And then, because sometimes it's easier to be honest with strangers, I add, "She called me every day for 15 years, every single day at 3 o'clock. Earl nods knowingly. That's love right there. My mama used to do the same thing when I lived up in Chicago. Drove me crazy at the time. But Lord, do I miss those calls now that she's gone. We drive in comfortable silence after that, and I find myself grateful for this small moment of understanding from someone who doesn't know me or my family's complications. Grandma Eleanor's house sits on a quiet street lined with ancient oak trees whose branches form a canopy over the road. It's a small, single-story brick home with a front porch that spans the entire width of the house. The yard is immaculate. As always, Grandma took enormous pride in her garden, and it shows. Even in October, there are still flowers blooming, chrysanthemums in deep gold and burgundy. And yes, there by the front window, the yellow rose bush she told me about in our last conversation. I stand on the sidewalk for a moment, just looking at the house where I spent so many summers as a child. This is where Grandma taught me to make biscuits from scratch, where she let me help plant seeds in her vegetable garden, where she would sit with me on the front porch swing and tell me stories about growing up in rural Louisiana during the 1940s. This is also where she made those daily phone calls to me, sitting at the little desk in her kitchen with her address book and her reading glasses, dialing my number at exactly 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Louisiana time. My dad's car is already in the driveway, along with Aunt Patricia's minivan and Michelle's Honda. I take a deep breath and walk up the front path, past the roses and the petunias and the perfectly trimmed hedges. The front door is unlocked, as it always was when Grandma was alive. I let myself in and am immediately hit with the smell of her house, a combination of vanilla candles, lemon furniture polish, and something floral that I think might have been her perfume. Sarah! Michelle appears from the kitchen and wraps me in a hug. My cousin is 2 years younger than me, a kindergarten teacher with 3 kids and a husband who coaches high school football. She's always been the peacemaker in our family, the one who tries to smooth over conflicts and make everyone get along. "I'm so glad you came," she says, squeezing my shoulders. "We're just getting started." Mom and Uncle Robert are in the bedroom going through Grandma's clothes, and Michael's in the garage looking at tools. What can I do to help? Well, Aunt Patricia found some boxes of papers and photos in the hall closet. Maybe you could go through those. There might be things worth keeping. I nod and follow her down the hallway toward the back of the house. The walls are lined with family photos spanning decades. My grandparents' wedding picture from 1956, various school portraits of me and my cousins, pictures from family reunions and holidays. I pause at one photo I remember being taken. It's from my high school graduation. I'm wearing my cap and gown, grinning at the camera, with Grandma's arm around my shoulders. She looks so proud. I wonder if this photo will make it into whatever memory box my family creates, or if it will be quietly discarded like my name was from the obituary. The hall closet is a treasure trove of memories. There are boxes of old Christmas cards, photo albums dating back to the 1960s, my grandfather's military medals from Vietnam, and yes, several journals with worn leather covers. I pull out one of the journals and open it carefully. The pages are filled with Grandma's neat handwriting in blue ink. The entries are dated, and this particular journal seems to span from 2019 to 2021. I flip through it randomly, and my heart skips when I see my name mentioned multiple times. March 15th, 2020, called Sarah today. She's working so hard during this pandemic, helping kids who are struggling with isolation and depression. I worry about her being so far away, but I'm so proud of the work she's doing. She has such a big heart. July 4th, 2020. Sarah couldn't make it home for the holiday, but we talked for an hour about everything. She's seeing a therapist herself now to deal with some family issues, which I think is wonderful. I told her that getting help takes courage, and she has more courage than she knows. I sit down hard on the hallway floor, the journal clutched in my hands. She was proud of me. She understood why I stayed in Portland during the pandemic. She supported me going to therapy. I flipped to another page. November 28th, 2020. Sarah called today feeling guilty about missing Thanksgiving again. I told her that family isn't just about being in the same place. It's about showing up for each other in the ways that matter. She shows up for me every single day at 3 o'clock. That's worth more than a dozen holiday visits. Tears are streaming down my face now. I grab another journal, this one more recent. January 10th, 2023. Robert mentioned today that he wishes Sarah would move back home, maybe work at the hospital here. I didn't have the heart to tell him that would be the worst thing for her. She's flourishing in Portland. She's found her purpose, her community, her joy. Why would I want to take that away from her just so we could see her more often? Love means wanting what's best for someone, even when it's not what's most convenient for you. February 14th, 2023. Sarah sent me flowers for Valentine's Day. Yellow roses, my favorites. The card said, "Thank you for loving me exactly as I am." If only she knew how easy that is. She's exactly who she's supposed to be. I'm sobbing now, right there on the hallway floor, surrounded by boxes and photo albums, and the overwhelming evidence that my grandmother loved me deeply, completely, without reservation. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I look up to see my dad standing in the hallway, his face creased with concern. Behind him, I can see my mom and Aunt Patricia emerging from the bedroom. I hold up the journal, unable to speak for a moment. "She wrote about me," I finally manage. "She wrote about our phone calls, about my work, about how proud she was of me." My dad's expression softens. He sits down on the floor next to me, something I can't remember him doing since I was a small child. "Of course she did, sweetheart. She loved you so much. Then why?" I gesture helplessly, still crying. "Why wasn't I in the obituary? Why does it feel like you're all ashamed of me?" My mom and Aunt Patricia have joined us now, sitting in a circle on the hallway floor like we're having some kind of impromptu family meeting. My mom reaches over and takes my hand. "We're not ashamed of you, Sarah. We're hurt, and maybe we've been handling that hurt in the wrong way." "Hurt about what?" "About losing you," Aunt Patricia says quietly. "When you moved to Portland, it felt like you were rejecting us, rejecting this life, this place, everything we value. But I wasn't rejecting you. I was finding myself." "We know that now," my dad says, or at least I'm starting to understand it. "But at the time it felt personal. It felt like we weren't good enough for you." I look around at these three people who raised me, who shaped me, who I've been pushing against for so many years. They look older than I remember, more fragile. My dad's hair is grayer, my mom has new lines around her eyes, and Aunt Patricia seems smaller somehow. "I never meant to hurt anyone," I say. "I just needed to figure out who I was outside of everyone's expectations." "And you did," my mom says, squeezing my hand. "You built a life that matters. You help people." Mama was so proud of that. "She talked about you constantly," Aunt Patricia adds. "Every time we visited, she had some new story about your work, or something funny you'd said on the phone, or how worried she was that you weren't eating enough vegetables." Despite everything, I laugh at that last part. "She always worried about my vegetable intake. Because she loved you," my dad says simply. "And we love you too. We've just been terrible at showing it." We sit there in comfortable silence for a moment, surrounded by the remnants of Grandma Eleanor's life. Then Michelle's voice calls from the kitchen, "Hey everyone, you need to see this." We untangle ourselves from our circle on the floor and walk toward the kitchen, where Michelle is standing by Grandma's little desk with an envelope in her hands. "I found this in the desk drawer," she says. "It's addressed to all of us, but it's specifically about Sarah." My heart starts pounding as Michelle hands me the envelope. My name is written on the front in Grandma's familiar handwriting, "For my family," regarding Sarah. I open it with shaking hands and unfold a single sheet of notebook paper. "My dear family," I read aloud. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're going through my things. I hope you found my journals because I want you to understand something important about Sarah. She may live far away, but she has been the most constant presence in my daily life for the past 15 years. Not a single day has passed that we haven't spoken. Not one. While the rest of you visit when you can and call when you remember, Sarah calls every day at 3 p.m. without fail. She listens to my stories, celebrates my victories, comforts me through my struggles, and makes me feel loved and valued every single day. She chose a different path than what you might have wanted for her, but it's a path of service and compassion and courage. I am more proud of her than I have words to express. Please don't let your hurt feelings about her choices prevent you from seeing what an extraordinary person she is. She deserves better from this family. Love always, Mama." By the time I finish reading, everyone is crying. My dad pulls me into a hug that feels like coming home after a very long journey. "We're going to fix this," he whispers, "starting with calling the newspaper and adding your name to the obituary. And making sure everyone knows how important you were to her," Aunt Patricia adds. Michelle wraps her arms around both of us. "Most important of all, we're going to do better. All of us." As we stand there in Grandma Eleanor's kitchen, holding each other and crying and finally understanding each other, I can almost hear her voice saying what she always said at the end of our daily calls. "I love you, sweetheart. You're doing important work." And for the first time in 15 years, I feel like my family might actually agree with her. The First Baptist Church of Baton Rouge is packed. I shouldn't be surprised. Grandma Eleanor was involved in everything from the food bank to the church choir to the community garden project. But seeing all these people gathered to honor her life takes my breath away. I'm sitting in the second row with my family, between Michelle and my dad. My name was added to the online obituary this morning, and I can't describe the relief I felt seeing Sarah Chen of Portland, Oregon, listed alongside my cousins. It was such a small thing, but it felt like being welcomed back into existence. The past few hours have been a whirlwind of reconnection. After our emotional conversation at Grandma's house, my parents insisted I cancel my hotel reservation and stay with them. My childhood bedroom has been converted into my dad's home office, but my mom made up the pull-out couch in the living room and fussed over me like I was still 17. It felt good. Complicated, but good. Now, sitting in this church where I attended Sunday services throughout my childhood, I'm surrounded by faces I recognize but haven't seen in years. Mrs. Henderson from across the street from Grandma's house waves at me from several rows back. Mr. Paul, who used to let me help him stock shelves at his corner store when I was 10, nods in my direction with a sad smile. The service begins with Grandma's favorite hymn, "How Great Thou Art," and I can barely get through the first verse without crying. This was the song she hummed while cooking, the song she sang while working in her garden, the song that would sometimes be playing softly in the background during our daily phone calls. Pastor Williams, who has led this congregation for as long as I can remember, speaks beautifully about Grandma's life of service. He talks about her volunteer work, her mentorship of neighborhood children, her famous peach cobbler, and her unwavering faith. He mentions how she never missed a Sunday service in 47 years, how she organized the church's Thanksgiving food drive every year, and how she had a gift for making everyone feel welcomed and loved. Then it's time for family to share memories. My cousin Michael goes first, talking about how Grandma taught him to fish at the pond behind her house, and how she always had a $20 bill ready for his birthday. Rebecca shares a story about Grandma attending every single one of her high school soccer games, even the away games that required an hour of driving each way. Michelle talks about how Grandma babysat all 3 of her children when they were small, turning everyday activities like grocery shopping and laundry folding into adventures. She describes coming home from work to find Grandma and the kids covered in flour because they'd decided to make cookies from scratch, or discovering that they'd built an elaborate fort out of couch cushions and bed sheets. Then Aunt Patricia stands up to read from Grandma's journals. She's chosen several entries that showcase different aspects of Grandma's personality: her love of gardening, her pride in her family, her faith, her sense of humor. But as she reads, I notice that many of the entries reference me and our daily phone conversations. March 20th, 2021, Aunt Patricia reads, "Sarah called today just as I was getting frustrated with the new rosebush that refuses to bloom. She listened to me complain about it for 10 minutes, then suggested maybe it just needs more time to establish its roots. Such wisdom from my granddaughter. She reminded me that the most beautiful growth often happens slowly, beneath the surface, where we can't see it." She flips to another page. August 15th, 2022. Sarah told me about a teenage boy she's been working with who was considering dropping out of school. She spent months connecting him with resources, checking in with him regularly, and today he told her he wants to become a counselor himself someday. I told her she's not just changing one life, she's creating a ripple effect that will touch countless others. She cried when I said that. My sweet girl doesn't always realize her own impact. As Aunt Patricia continues reading, I begin to understand something profound about my relationship with Grandma Eleanor. Our daily phone calls weren't just casual check-ins. They were a lifeline for both of us. She needed someone to share her daily joys and frustrations with, and I needed someone who believed in me unconditionally. We were each other's constant in a world full of uncertainty. But there's something else becoming clear as I listen to these journal entries. Grandma Eleanor wasn't just proud of me. She was learning from me. She writes about conversations where my perspective helped her see things differently, where my experiences in Portland opened her mind to new possibilities, where my work with teenagers inspired her to get more involved with local youth programs. December 7th, 2023, Aunt Patricia reads, and I sit up straighter because this is recent, just 10 months ago. Sarah called during a particularly difficult day. She's been working with a girl whose family disowned her for being different, and Sarah was heartbroken about it. We talked for over an hour about how families sometimes hurt the people they love most when those people don't fit into expected molds. I told her that real love means accepting people as they are, not as we wish they were. But honestly, I think I was reminding myself as much as I was comforting her. Sometimes the people we love have to go far away to become who they're meant to be. Our job is to love them through the distance. My breath catches. She was talking about me, about our family's struggle to accept my choices, about the distance, both geographical and emotional, that had grown between me and everyone else. Aunt Patricia looks directly at me as she reads the next entry. February 28th, 2024. I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately. What do I want to be remembered for? What impact have I had on the world? Today I realized that my greatest legacy might be Sarah. Not because she carries my name or lives nearby, but because she carries my values out into the world in ways I never could. She takes the love and acceptance I tried to show her and multiplies it, sharing it with young people who desperately need someone to believe in them. She took the lessons about compassion and service that I hope to teach all my grandchildren, and she built a career around them. She's living proof that love planted in childhood can bloom into something beautiful, even when it grows in soil far from home. I'm crying so hard now that Michelle has to hand me an entire pack of tissues. Around me, I can see that I'm not the alone. There are tears throughout the congregation, and several people are looking at me with new understanding. But Aunt Patricia isn't finished. She turns to a page near the end of the journal, one of the last entries Grandma made. October 5th, 2024, she reads, her own voice thick with emotion now. I've been having chest pains again, and I know my time is getting short. I'm not afraid to die. I've lived a full life, and I'm ready to see John again. But I am worried about my family, especially about the rifts that have developed over the years. Sarah bears the brunt of this, and it breaks my heart. She calls me every day, but she feels disconnected from everyone else. She thinks it's because she's different, because she made choices they don't understand. But the truth is, she's not the problem. We are. We've been so focused on our own hurt feelings about her moving away that we forgot to celebrate who she became while she was gone. We've been so busy wishing she was different that we missed how extraordinary she actually is. I pray that when I'm gone, they'll read these journals and understand what I've always known. Sarah is exactly who she's supposed to be, and we're lucky to have her in our lives. The church is completely silent, except for the sound of people crying. Aunt Patricia closes the journal and looks out at the congregation. My mother wrote dozens of entries about each of us, she says, but the entries about Sarah are different. They're not just about visits or special occasions. They're about daily life, daily connection, daily love. Sarah, you were Mama's constant companion in a way that the rest of us never were. We lived nearby, but you lived in her heart every single day. She pauses, looking directly at me. Mama's final entry was written just 3 days before she died. She was in the hospital, but she insisted on having her journal with her. She wrote, Sarah called today at exactly 3 p.m., just like always. Even though I'm sick and scared, hearing her voice made everything better. She told me about her work, asked about my pain levels, and made me laugh with a story about her neighbor's cat. After we hung up, I realized something. I may be dying, but the love between Sarah and me will never die. It lives in every person she helps, every life she touches, every moment of compassion she shows to someone who needs it. She is my living legacy, and I couldn't be more proud. By the time Aunt Patricia finishes reading, there isn't a dry eye in the church. Pastor Williams has to pause for several minutes before he can continue with the service. I feel like my heart might burst from the combination of grief and gratitude and overwhelming love. After the service, something unexpected happens. Person after person approaches me to share their own memories of Grandma Eleanor talking about me. Mrs. Henderson tells me that Grandma used to brag about my work to everyone in the neighborhood, always carrying around articles I'd sent her about mental health awareness for teenagers. Mr. Paul mentions that Grandma would light up whenever she talked about our phone calls, often mentioning specific conversations we'd had days earlier. She was so proud of you, honey, says Mrs. Rose, who had been in Grandma's book club. Every month when we'd meet, she'd find a way to work something about you into the conversation. Last month, she told us about how you'd helped a young man find housing after he aged out of foster care. She said you were changing the world one person at a time. Dr. Margaret Evans, who had been Grandma's physician, pulls me aside. Your grandmother talked about you during every single appointment, she says. She would tell me about your work, show me pictures you'd sent, and always mention your daily phone calls. She used to say that talking to you was better medicine than anything I could prescribe. I'm overwhelmed by these revelations. All these years, I thought I was just the granddaughter who lived far away, the one who couldn't make it to family gatherings, the one who had disappointed everyone by choosing a different path. But to Grandma Eleanor, I was something else entirely. I was her daily dose of joy, her connection to purpose and meaning, her proof that love could transcend distance. The burial service is smaller, just family and close friends gathered around the gravesite. As they lower the casket into the ground, I think about all those daily phone calls, over 5,000 conversations across 15 years, all those moments of connection, laughter, comfort, and love. All those times she told me she was proud of me, and all the times I didn't quite believe her because I felt so disconnected from everyone else. After the burial, our family gathers at my parents' house for a meal that neighbors and church members have provided. The house is full of casseroles and covered dishes and the kind of comfort food that shows up at Southern funerals. But more importantly, it's full of conversation, real conversation, the kind my family hasn't had in years. My cousin Michael, who I haven't really talked to since high school, approaches me while I'm helping my mom organize the kitchen. Sarah, I owe you an apology, he says. We all do. I had no idea how much you meant to Grandma or how much effort you put into staying connected with her. You don't need to apologize, Michael. We all grieve differently. No, it's more than that. He leans against the kitchen counter, looking uncomfortable but determined. The truth is, I was jealous. We all were. You got out of here. You built this interesting life in a cool city. You found work that actually matters. Meanwhile, I'm still here selling insurance and wondering if this is all there is. I look at my cousin, really look at him. For the first time in years, he's gained weight since I last saw him, and there are stress lines around his eyes that weren't there before. But more than that, he looks defeated. Michael, you have 3 beautiful kids and a wife who adores you. You coach Little League and volunteer at the food bank. Your life matters too. But it's not what I dreamed of when we were kids, you know. You chased your dreams. You took risks. You became the person you wanted to be instead of just accepting what was expected. This conversation is getting deeper than I anticipated, but maybe that's what our family needs. Honest conversations about dreams and disappointment and the different ways people find meaning in their lives. I didn't chase my dreams because I was brave, I tell him. I chased them because staying here felt like suffocating. You stayed because this place gives you something I couldn't find here. There's no right or wrong way to build a life. Grandma understood that, he says quietly. She used to tell us that you weren't running away from family. You were running toward yourself. I didn't get it then, but I'm starting to now. Our conversation is interrupted by Rebecca, who joins us in the kitchen carrying an armload of dirty plates. Are you two talking about Grandma's journals? She asks. Because I've been thinking about them all day. What about them? I ask. About how she saw us, how she saw you specifically. Rebecca sets down the plates and turns to face me fully. Sarah, I need to tell you something. When you moved to Portland, I was so angry. Not just because you left, but because you had the courage to leave. I've wanted to move away from Texas for years. I hate my job. I'm not happy in my marriage. I feel trapped, but you actually did it. You actually had the guts to start over. This is not the conversation I expected to have at my grandmother's funeral, but maybe it's the conversation we needed to have years ago. It's not too late, Rebecca, I say gently. You're only 31. If you're not happy, you can change things. Can I? With 2 kids and a mortgage and Tyler's business just getting off the ground? I don't know. Maybe not all at once, but you can start making changes, small ones. You can start moving toward the life you actually want instead of the one you settled for. Rebecca's eyes fill with tears. Grandma used to say that. In her letters, she'd write things like, "It's never too late to bloom where you're planted, or to replant yourself in better soil." She wrote you letters? Every month for the past 5 years, ever since I told her I was struggling. They weren't long, just a page or 2, but they always seemed to come exactly when I needed them most. I'm learning so much about my grandmother today. The daily phone calls with me, the monthly letters to Rebecca, the constant bragging about all of us to her friends and neighbors. She was the thread that connected our scattered family, the person who held all of our stories and saw all of our potential even when we couldn't see it ourselves. As the afternoon continues, more family stories emerge. Michelle talks about how Grandma would text her parenting advice and funny memes during difficult days with the kids. My dad admits that Grandma would call him whenever she was worried about one of us, strategizing ways to offer support without being intrusive. My mom reveals that Grandma had been quietly sending money to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students in my name for the past 3 years. She what? I nearly dropped the casserole dish I'm holding. She wanted to honor your work with teenagers, my mom explains. She said that if you couldn't be here to help kids in Louisiana directly, she'd make sure kids in Louisiana got help in your name. I have to sit down. The kitchen chair feels unsteady beneath me as I process this information. Not only was Grandma Eleanor proud of my work, she was actively extending its impact. She was creating opportunities for kids in Louisiana to get the kind of support I provide in Portland. How many students? I ask. 12 so far, my dad says. Kids who wanted to go to college but couldn't afford it. Grandma researched each application personally, looking for students who reminded her of you, kids who wanted to help others, kids who were passionate about making a difference. I'm crying again, but this time, it's not from grief, it's from awe. My grandmother didn't just love me. She understood me so completely that she found ways to multiply my impact, even from 1,000 miles away. The rest of the afternoon passes in a blur of revelations and reconnections. My family isn't perfect. We still have work to do to bridge the gaps that formed over the years. But for the first time in over a decade, I feel like we're actually seeing each other clearly. As evening approaches and the out-of-town relatives begin to head home, I find myself alone with my parents in their living room. The house is quiet, except for the tick of the grandfather clock that's been in our family for 3 generations. I want to show you something, my mom says, disappearing into her bedroom and returning with a shoebox. We were going through Grandma's things yesterday before you arrived, and we found this. She hands me the shoebox, and when I open it, I gasp. It's full of things related to me. Newspaper clippings about the nonprofit where I work, printed emails I'd sent over the years, photos I'd mailed, even a program from a community mental health awareness event I'd helped organize that somehow made its way to her. But at the very bottom of the box is something that makes my heart stop. A phone bill from 3 months ago with dozens of calls to my number highlighted in yellow. In the margin, she'd written, Sarah 3 p.m. daily. Never missed. She kept track, I whisper. She kept track of everything, my dad says, sitting down beside me on the couch. Sarah, we owe you a huge apology. We've spent so many years focusing on what we lost when you moved away that we never acknowledged what you found. We never celebrated who you became. And we certainly never recognized how much effort you put into staying connected with Mama, my mom adds. A phone call every single day for 15 years. That's not the action of someone who abandoned her family. That's the action of someone who loved her grandmother deeply. We sit together in comfortable silence for a while, the shoebox of memories between us on the coffee table. Finally, my dad speaks again. I have a proposition for you, he says. What if we established that scholarship fund as a permanent memorial to Mama? What if we made sure it continues in perpetuity, helping kids who want to do the kind of work you do? And what if we made it bigger? My mom adds. What if we involved the whole family, made it a way for all of us to honor both Mama's memory and your work? I look at my parents, really look at them, and see something I haven't seen in years, genuine pride. Not disappointment that I'm not the daughter they expected, but pride in the daughter I actually am. I'd love that, I say, but only if we do it together, only if it becomes a way for our family to stay connected moving forward. Daily phone calls? My dad asks with a small smile. Maybe not daily, I laugh, but regular, real, honest, like Mama would have wanted, my mom says. As I get ready for bed that night in my childhood home, I think about the day's revelations. My grandmother's journals didn't just reveal how much she loved me, they revealed how much she understood about love itself. She knew that love isn't about proximity or convenience. It's about showing up consistently, paying attention to what matters to the people you care about, and finding ways to support their growth even when their path takes them far from you. She also knew something else that it took me years to understand. You can't make people love you the way you need to be loved, but you can find the people who already do and treasure those relationships like the gifts they are. For 15 years, Grandma Eleanor and I gave each other the gift of daily connection, daily love, daily presence. Tomorrow I'll fly back to Portland, back to my work and my life and my relationship with James. But I won't be flying back as the same person who left 3 days ago. I'll be flying back as someone who finally understands that love isn't measured by geography or obituaries or family expectations. Love is measured by phone calls at 3 p.m., by scholarship funds established in secret, by journals full of pride and admiration, by the willingness to see someone exactly as they are and celebrate them for it. I'll be flying back as Eleanor Chen's granddaughter, secure in the knowledge that I was loved completely and without reservation by someone who mattered more than I ever realized. And I'll be flying back with a family that finally understands what Grandma Eleanor always knew, that the greatest gift you can give someone is the freedom to become who they're meant to be, and the assurance that you'll love them no matter how far that journey takes them from home. 3 weeks have passed since I returned to Portland, and everything feels different. Not just the obvious things, though there have been plenty of those. My family group text, which used to consist mainly of birthday reminders and holiday logistics, now buzzes daily with real conversations. My dad sends me articles about mental health initiatives he thinks I'd find interesting. My mom shares photos of her attempts to recreate Grandma Eleanor's garden in her own backyard. Michelle updates us on her kids' activities, but also on her own feelings about returning to school to get her master's degree in education. But the deeper change is in how I see myself and my place in the world. For so many years, I carried the weight of feeling like the family disappointment, the one who couldn't quite fit into the expected mold. I built a good life in Portland despite that feeling, not because of it. Now I'm building on it, expanding it, with the confidence that comes from finally understanding my own worth. I'm sitting in my apartment on this rainy Thursday afternoon, looking out at the Portland skyline and thinking about the conversation I had with James last night. We were cooking dinner together, his famous vegetable stir-fry that Grandma Eleanor would have approved of, when he brought up something that's been on both our minds. "You seem different since you got back from Louisiana," he said, not accusingly, but with the careful attention of someone who cares about you. Lighter somehow, more settled. I had to think about how to explain it. I think I spent so many years proving to myself that I could survive without my family's approval that I forgot to notice I actually had it, at least from the person whose opinion mattered most, your grandmother. Yeah, but also I realized that I was carrying around this story about myself that wasn't even true. I thought I was the granddaughter who had disappointed everyone by moving away. But the truth is, I was the granddaughter who called every single day. I was the one who stayed connected. I was the one who turned the values my family taught me into a career of service. James had smiled at that, the kind of smile that told me he'd been waiting for me to see what he'd seen all along. Now, as I prepare for my afternoon client sessions, I'm thinking about how grief and healing can happen simultaneously. I miss Grandma Eleanor every day. I miss her voice, her laugh, her endless questions about whether I'm eating enough vegetables. But I also feel her presence in ways I never did before. I hear her pride in my voice when I talk to clients. I see her wisdom in the way I approach difficult cases. I carry her love with me like a talisman. My phone buzzes with a text from Michelle. The scholarship committee met today. We've selected 3 new recipients for this semester. Grandma would be so proud. The Eleanor Chen Memorial Scholarship Fund has become more than any of us imagined. What started as Grandma's quiet support for 12 students has grown into a family-wide effort that's already helping dozens of young people pursue careers in social work, counseling, education, and community service. My cousins and I each contribute monthly, and my parents have rallied their friends and Grandma's church community to support it as well. But more than the money, the scholarship has given our family a shared purpose. We're not just grieving Grandma Eleanor's death. We're celebrating her life by extending her values into the future. Every student who receives funding carries a piece of her forward into the world. My phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID shows a number I don't recognize, but the area code is Louisiana. Hello, this is Sarah. Hi, Sarah. This is Dr. Patricia Nguyen from LSU's School of Social Work. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Not at all. How can I help you? Well, I'm calling about the Eleanor Chen Memorial Scholarship. We've been so impressed with the program and its focus on supporting first-generation college students who want to pursue careers in helping others. I was wondering if you might be interested in serving on our advisory board for community partnerships. I sit up straighter. Can you tell me more about what that would involve? We're looking to expand our connections with community organizations that serve at-risk youth. Your background in Portland, combined with your family's commitment to this scholarship fund, makes you an ideal candidate to help us identify students who might benefit from our programs and to help our graduates find meaningful employment opportunities. The conversation continues for 20 minutes, and by the end, I've agreed to consider the position. It would involve quarterly trips to Louisiana, regular video conferences with university staff, and the opportunity to help shape programming that connects academic social work training with real-world community needs. After we hang up, I sit quietly for a moment, processing what just happened. 6 months ago, the idea of taking on any role that would increase my connection to Louisiana would have felt like moving backward. But now it feels like moving forward in a way that honors both who I've become and where I came from. My 2 p.m. client arrives right on schedule. Marcus is 17, a foster kid who's been in my program for 6 months. When he first came to see me, he was angry, distrustful, and convinced that no adult would ever truly care about his well-being. Today, he's telling me about his acceptance to community college and his plan to study social work. "I want to do what you do," he says, leaning forward in his chair with the kind of intensity that always reminds me why I love this work. "I want to help kids like me figure out that they matter." "You already help kids like you," I remind him. "Remember when you talked Jessica out of dropping out last month? Remember when you helped David find housing after he aged out of the system?" "Yeah, but I want to do it officially. I want to be trained to do it right." I think about Grandma Eleanor's journal entry about ripple effects, about how helping one person can touch countless others. Marcus is living proof of that truth. "You know what?" I say, making a decision that feels both impulsive and inevitable. "I think there might be a scholarship opportunity you'd be interested in hearing about." After Marcus leaves, I call my dad. "Hey, sweetheart," he answers on the second ring. "How are you doing?" "Good. Really good, actually." "Dad, I need to ask you something about the scholarship fund." "Of course. What's on your mind?" "Would the family be open to expanding it beyond Louisiana students? I have a client here in Portland who would be perfect for it, and I know there are others." There's a pause, but it's thoughtful rather than hesitant. "You know, I think Mama would love that. Her goal was always to multiply your impact, right? If we can help kids in Portland become the kind of people who help kids in Louisiana, and vice versa, isn't that exactly what she would have wanted?" We talk for another 15 minutes, sketching out ideas for how to expand the scholarship geographically while maintaining its focus on supporting first-generation students who want careers in service. By the end of the conversation, I'm energized in a way I haven't felt in months. That evening, James and I take a walk through our neighborhood. It's one of those perfect Portland autumn nights, crisp air, colorful leaves, the kind of golden light that makes everything look like a postcard. We end up at our favorite coffee shop, the one where we had our first date 8 months ago. "I have something to tell you," I say, as we settle into our usual corner table. "That sounds ominous," he says, but he's smiling. "LSU offered me a position on their advisory board. It would mean quarterly trips to Louisiana and more involvement in the scholarship program. And I think I want to do it. I think I want to deepen my connection to home instead of continuing to run from it." James reaches across the table and takes my hand. "What changed?" I think about how to explain the past few weeks, the revelations about Grandma Eleanor's journals, the reconciliation with my family, the shift in how I see my own story. I spent so many years thinking that being successful meant proving I didn't need my family. But maybe real success is figuring out how to honor where you came from, while still becoming who you're meant to be. "That sounds very wise," he says. "Also, very much like something your grandmother would have said." He's right. It does sound like something Grandma Eleanor would have said. In fact, it sounds exactly like the kind of wisdom she used to share during our daily phone calls, the kind of perspective that helped me navigate difficult decisions and challenging relationships. "James," I say, suddenly nervous, "there's something else." "Okay, I want to ask you to come with me to Louisiana, not just for a visit, but as my partner. I want to introduce you to my family properly, show you where I grew up, help you understand all the parts of me that you haven't seen yet." His smile is radiant. "I thought you'd never ask. Is that a yes?" That's a yes to Louisiana, and a yes to whatever comes next, and a yes to building something together that honors both our stories. We sit there holding hands across the small table, planning a trip that feels like much more than a trip. It feels like the next chapter of a story that began with daily phone calls and developed through grief into something deeper and more connected than I ever imagined possible. Later that night, as I'm getting ready for bed, I realize what time it is. 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Louisiana. For 15 years, this was when my phone would ring. For 15 years, this was when I'd hear Grandma Eleanor's voice asking about my day, sharing stories from her own life, reminding me that I was loved. The phone doesn't ring tonight, of course. It hasn't rung at 3 p.m. for 3 weeks now, and it never will again. But I pick up my phone anyway and call my parents' house. "Hello?" My mom answers. "Hi, Mom, it's Sarah." "Oh, hi, sweetheart. How was your day?" And we talk. We talk about her attempts to grow yellow roses like the ones Grandma planted. We talk about my dad's new volunteer work at the community health clinic. We talk about the scholarship fund and my potential role with LSU and my plans to bring James home for Christmas. We talk for 27 minutes, just like Grandma Eleanor and I used to do. When we hang up, I feel something I haven't felt since she died. The particular kind of contentment that comes from being fully known and completely loved by someone who matters. Grandma Eleanor's daily phone calls taught me that love isn't just an emotion. It's a practice. It's showing up consistently, paying attention to details that matter to the other person, and creating space for connection even when life gets busy or complicated. She also taught me that family isn't just about who you're born to. It's about who chooses to love you, who celebrates your victories, who believes in your dreams even when they take you far from home. But maybe most importantly, she taught me that you can honor your roots while still growing toward the light. You can be grateful for where you came from while still becoming who you're meant to be. You can love your family and build a different kind of life and have both choices be exactly right. As I turn off the lights and settle into bed, I think about the conversation I want to have with Marcus tomorrow. I want to tell him about the scholarship opportunity, yes, but I also want to tell him something else, that the people who love you best will celebrate your growth, even when it takes you in directions they didn't expect. That the greatest gift you can give the people who raised you is to become the fullest version of yourself. That honoring the past doesn't mean being trapped by it. I want to tell him what Grandma Eleanor spent 15 years teaching me through daily phone calls and unconditional love. That you matter, that your work matters, that who you are matters, and that the people who truly love you will never make you feel otherwise. Outside my window, Portland sleeps under its blanket of autumn rain. In a few months, I'll be on a plane to Louisiana with James beside me, ready to introduce him to my family and to show him the scholarship recipients whose lives are being changed by Grandma Eleanor's legacy of love. But tonight, I'm content to be exactly where I am, exactly who I am, carrying forward the daily practice of love that my grandmother taught me and passing it on to everyone who needs it. Because that's what love is, a daily choice, a daily practice, a daily reminder that we all matter and we all deserve to be seen and celebrated for exactly who we are. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, that love echoes forward long after the phone stops ringing, touching lives and changing futures in ways we never could have imagined. That's the kind of legacy worth building. That's the kind of love worth living for.